20,000 plus emails from Jeffrey Epstein's estate were released. Donald Trump's name is all over them and in devastating fashion. Great work by the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee that got their hands on these emails from the Epstein estate. And they're not just bad, they're bad for Donald Trump. No matter what distractions Trump and MAGA try to pull, this is horrible for him. And we will dig deep into those emails and probably go over emails you haven't seen yet, which are even much worse than what's been publicly reported. Also, the Trump regime today said that we will likely not have and never have credible job or inflation data, perhaps ever again. The stock market, guess what? Doesn't like that. Businesses, guess what? Don't like that the regime is saying that they're not going to be able to publish accurate data when it comes to jobs or inflation, which we know are both very, very bad at this point. The Dow was down almost 2%, S&P down almost 2%, NASDAQ down almost 3%. Not a good day on the market, and looks like rough days ahead as well. Also, we've learned that Republican senators snuck into the continuing resolution a provision to pay themselves each, or at least 8 of the Republican senators who claim that they were injured, $500,000, perhaps even more, over $1 million, according to Lindsey Graham. They claim that they were injured by special counsel Jack Smith issuing subpoenas that turned up the digits of their phone number, not wiretaps, not eavesdropping, not their conversation. The digits, they say, ended up in the subpoena because of their connection to the January 6th insurrection. And in a continuing resolution that will take away potentially 20 million Americans' health care as the Affordable Care Act subsidies will not be extended, they're paying themselves $500,000, $1 million more from the taxpayers. We're paying them. What the heck is going on there? Also, next week, after the discharge petition was finally executed and will ripen, thanks to Adelita Grijalva, the Democratic Congresswoman, now officially Congresswoman from Arizona's 7th Congressional District, being sworn in, discharge petition signed. There will be a vote to release the Epstein files. We expect as many as 100 Republican defections, could be less. I think somewhere between 50 and 100 Republican defections who will vote to release the Epstein files. And let's talk about this disastrous Trump interview with Laura Ingraham on Fox. No matter how she tries to spin it, it was a disaster and has MAGA running away from Donald Trump. He says that American workers are not capable of doing the jobs that foreign workers do here, specifically high-skilled jobs. Also, that Chinese college students are far better than Americans to fill those seats at American universities. And that's why we need to bring Chinese students here and not let American students go to universities here in the United States. Oh, and by the way, while all of that was going on, Donald Trump had the leader of Syria in the Oval Office, where he started spritzing the leader of Syria, the former Al-Qaeda leader, with like perfume and cologne and said, let me smell you. Let me smell you. Oh, you smell so good. Anyway, that's what's going on. Let's talk about it all. Brett Jordy, how are you doing? That's what's going on in this country, the United States, everybody.
Never a dull day. Unfortunately, I'm doing good. It's great to be here, Ben. It's great to be here, Jordy. It's great to be here, Midas Mighty. You know, this whole administration, this whole regime is just so incredibly Orwellian. I remember, back in the beginning a few months ago when we floated the idea that they would be hiding the economic data or trying to concoct new data to replace the bad data. There were a lot of people who looked at us and were like, oh, stop with the conspiracy theories. They're never going to do that. Stop it. Be realistic here. And now we're at a time where they are literally hiding the economic data. They're not releasing the inflation report for the month of October as of now. And they're saying literally in their own words that they need to concoct the economic data, concoct the jobs data. One of the reasons why the markets are so fearful right now of what is going on, because when you actually look out there in the world and see what's going on, you are seeing mass layoffs across basically every sector except like AI or something. Like, it is bad out there, and they could try to hide it all they want. They could try to gaslight the American people all they want, but that only goes so far when people go to the store and they see that things are much more expensive than they were the week before, the month before, when they try to apply for jobs and they're not having any luck, when they get fired from their jobs. I mean, these are real things that impact people's daily lives. Donald Trump and the Republican Party think they could lie their way out of it, but they cannot. They also think they can lie their way out of this Epstein file situation. Well, the more they try to bury the Epstein files, the worse it gets for them. And it came back to haunt them in a massive way this week. I'm excited to dive into that, into the emails, into what they're saying, all the chaos, but it's great to be here. Jordy, what's the latest?
What's up, brothers? What's up, Midas Mighty? So stoked to be here tonight. I'm excited for today's show. Benji, with that, let's just dive into it because we've got a lot of ground to cover, as you laid out so perfectly in the intro. Where are we starting off today, big bro?
I want to do a deep dive into those Epstein estate emails because I think there are a lot of emails that you haven't seen. You might have watched the deep dive that I did earlier in the day, but I'll go over those. But I think first, I just want to discuss what in normal times would be and should be one of the biggest scandals imaginable, that the Trump regime is not going to publish the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, which measures inflation. It should also be noted that they fired the huge portion of their data gathering staff. They also fired the former head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Remember when they fired the commissioner for accurately reporting the data? So one thing that's been very much underreported is that the data inputs that go into the CPI, well, those have been based on concocting. That's the word that the Trump regime uses. They're just making up 40 to 50% of the inputs going in. That's not supposed to happen. What's supposed to happen is you go and you survey and actually find what the prices of products are and if they're going up or down or whatever. So right now, the Trump regime people who go and lie about everything, they just make up what the numbers are to begin with. But setting that aside, they're now saying, and Caroline Leavitt said this, and it was reinforced by Kevin Hassett, the top national economic advisor in this regime, they're going to concoct or they're just not going to give information. Leavitt says there's no more credible jobs reports or inflation reports that may ever be released, not just for the month of October, but ever is what she's saying. Just think about that. Here's what she said. Let's play her clip first.
Economists, investors, and policymakers at the Federal Reserve to receive critical government data. The Democrats may have permanently damaged the federal statistical system with October CPI and jobs reports likely never being released. And all of that economic data released will be permanently impaired, leaving our policymakers at the Fed flying blind at a critical period.
Here's the thing. No one believes this. The Democrats did it. Okay, everybody knows that Trump and the Republicans control all branches of government. They've asserted their authority as authoritarians now for 10 months. ICE on the street, disappearing people, throwing them into concentration camps. A whistleblower showed some video of what one of those concentration camps looks like, I believe, in Houston, with the children lying on the ground, suffering, torturing. I think we have some of that footage that I'll show a little bit later. I mean, horrific sights there. We've seen the Trump regime do tariffs against the world. Me, trumpets. I'm doing everything. Look at me. I'm the only one who can fix it. Well, okay, you've asserted that. And now you want to blame Biden? You're blaming the Democrats? You said you controlled everything. You're the guy who said on day one, you know Putin and Zelensky so well. You'll end the war in Ukraine. You know this person and that person. And now all we get from Trump and them is just lies. I solved 8 wars. I brought in $23 trillion. America's never been hotter. We've never been this hot. I mean, it's lie after lie after lie. Just take a look at this survey, this poll from Navigator. Who do you blame for costs going up? For healthcare premiums, 47% of Americans blame Republicans, only 21% blame Democrats. Costs generally, 46% Republicans, 19% Democrats. Electricity, 38% Republicans, 19% Democrats. You can go poll after poll after poll, and the numbers are either like this or even more people blaming Republicans than Democrats. Now, let me show you Kevin Hassett, National Economic Advisor. He talks about concocting the data, the CPI. He goes, oh, we'll never know what October's CPI is. Many people believe it's at least 3.1% year over year inflation, but it could be more. We don't know. I'll tell you my personal experience when I go food shopping or go to buy clothes or do anything that requires purchasing is it feels a lot more than 3.1% than last year. That's what year over year means. 3.1% more than under former President Biden, basically. To me, it feels a lot more. But Trump said he was going to make the prices less than Biden. So here's what Hassett says. Let's play it.
And the household survey wasn't conducted in October, so we're going to get half the employment report. We'll get the jobs part, but we won't get the unemployment rate, and that'll just be for 1 month. But yeah, it is true that we probably will maybe be able to concoct something, but we'll never actually know for sure what the unemployment rate was in October.
Brett, Jordy, you never want to hear the National Economic Advisor use the word concoct, nor do you want to hear the press secretary say something different than what he said. She said we may never get credible data ever again.
Let me somehow tie this into the Epstein files for a second, because I think this is actually very indicative of everything that's going on and very revealing of the moves going on behind the scenes in this Trump regime. If there was good economic data, if the economic data showed inflation coming down, jobs going up, if it showed a thriving economy, they would be the first ones to release it. They would love to tout those statistics. Look how great everything is. We said there was a golden age, and guess what? We delivered. There are more people going to work than ever. Inflation is down. Look, it's amazing out there. They would love to tout that data, but the reason they're hiding it is because they know it's bad. Now, to me, same thing what's going on with the Epstein files. If they knew that these Epstein files, if the Epstein files, in fact, had all this evidence that showed that Trump actually was not involved at all, that he was a completely innocent guy, but that it actually incriminated all of these Democrats and, Bill Clinton and this Democrat and Obama, all the various names that they like to throw out. Donald Trump would be the first person to say, let's release those Epstein files. I'm going to go to the DOJ. We're going to release that right now. But there is a reason that they are keeping all of this information hidden from the American public, and that's because it's likely all devastating for Donald Trump, the Trump regime, and all of the people who continue to prop up this house of cards.
Such an excellent point, B. And look, I'm not doing a bit right now, but Ben, can you explain to me what Caroline Leavitt was even saying? Like, I genuinely don't fully understand what she was speaking words, but I don't know what she was saying. Can you explain to me?
Well, she was saying that in terms of the data that the government publishes on a monthly basis, sometimes once a month, there are other reports that are every few weeks, but this has been done regularly, basically forever. She goes, we can't do it anymore. She says, because of the government shutdown, she's blaming it on Democrats. They won't be able to print or publish any of their inflation data or job data in a way that is credible anymore. And the fact that after she said that, she didn't immediately clarify what that even means. The White House is saying, our data is all fake, it's fraudulent, and we may not ever produce data. And the reason, Jordy, why she's saying that is because, shocker, they know the data. They know what's going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have access to it, and they know it's bad. It's bad out there. And I think it's worse out there than 3.1% year over year inflation. I think it's worse than what these job reports have been showing. I mean, you can say anecdotally, but we at some point have shared lived experiences of existing right now. And whether it's the housing market, bad, credit cards, top defaults, like ever, right? Jobless claims, worse since the Great Recession or at the peak of COVID. Look at any metric that you want to, look at industry sectors, construction, manufacturing, which was having a boom under Biden. they're in recessionary territories right now. Tourism, great recessionary territories as people don't want to come to the United States anymore. You look at hospitality, restaurants, I mean, struggling. You look at freight, you look at shipping, you look at farming. I mean, remember Trump's like, oh, I did this great deal with China, soybeans, in addition to the fact that if you actually had a deal that required signatures and it was binding, which nobody signed any deals. There's no terms. It's a made up thing. But even under the terms that Donald Trump claims exists, U.S. soybean exporters export 2 million metric tons less of soybeans annually to China and 15 million metric tons less this year than under former President Biden. Less is not as good as more when it comes to farmers wanting to export. But now what we're learning is China's not abiding by Trump's understanding of what it was. Why? They got all their soybeans already cheaper from Argentina and from Brazil. They've got it. So like they don't need the soybeans, right? Duh, from our farmers at this point. So our farmers like, don't you want this? They're like, sorry, we got it from... Remember when your country bailed out Argentina for $40 billion? Well, they turned around and gave us the soybeans, so we don't need your soybeans anymore. And remember, Trump's like, well, I also got the rare earth elements being sent. Well, you're the reason why they were stopped being sent in the first place, because under former President Biden, China was sending rare earth elements and they didn't put these export controls. But now China's also saying, well, we never said that we were going to release these rare earth elements. We only said that we would be open to the idea of perhaps doing it, but any American company that has a relationship with the United States military, we're going to have to keep the export control licenses in place. And guess how many of these companies that need rare earth elements have a connection to the United States military? Mostly all of them have some form of a government contract, right? So Trump just got played there. So my point is, you look at every sector of the economy and it's all really, really bad right now. And Trump's gimmick is the classic Ponzi scheme, Bernie Madoff gimmick to say, guess what? Wealth is right around the corner. Doge dividend checks. Oh, those didn't arrive. Tariff rebate checks. Oh, wait, those didn't arrive. How about tariff dividend checks? Those are coming. And guess what? We're going to replace healthcare with giving you a $2,000 check, and we're going to not pay insurance companies anymore, put them out of business, and now you get to buy your health care with $2,000, setting aside the fact that Trump's not going to give this $2,000 and it's just more made up Ponzi scheme type stuff. If you were handed a check for $2,000, how is that going to pay for the health care that you need? What happens when you need a procedure? What happens if there's a surgery that costs more than $2,000? Okay. The whole point of health insurance is to insure with vast risk pools when people actually need it in certain circumstances. So you need some form of insurance, whether it's single payer, whether government is the insurer, whether it's universal health care, whether it's private insurance, whether it's the Affordable Care Act, which takes the existing private insurance but tries to subsidize it and keep the price low, but then have the government step in certain areas. You have to have some sort of system, but Trump across the board, Brett and Jordy, is tear it down. Jordy, good answer to what she was saying.
You must be a lawyer or something and bill by the hour, because that was quite the explanation to what the hell did Levitt say. No, I actually feel bad that you speak such fluent Caroline Levitt. Thank you for breaking that down. That was really informative, B. For me, what it just comes down to is the pull yourself up by your bootstrap party, right? That's what the GOP, that's their motto. That's their thing. They always make excuses. They always have someone else to blame, and they just never take accountability. It's like, y'all control every branch of government. What are you doing blaming the Democrats, blaming Biden? It sounds insane, but that's just their reflex. Their reflex is to lie. And that's why I say all the time, what we do here at the MeidasTouch Network is easy. Right? We bring the facts, the data, the receipts. When you're dealing with the truth and the data and the facts and all of that, that's an easy thing to show. What these Republicans are doing, just bending over backwards every single day to make up the next lie, is banana land to me. And the thing is, the lies are so stupid. Like, they could cherry pick any economic data that they want to try and show, oh, look, the economy, it's doing great. We're getting right there. But at the end of the day, the people go into the gas pumps, the people go into the grocery stores, they're feeling it. They're seeing it. It is physically coming out of their accounts. So they can be gaslit by this regime all they want. But at the end of the day, people are seeing the true numbers out there because it's hitting home, literally.
Well, they could say these lies at their own peril. Honestly, it's the worst thing that you could do. And even, former President Biden would get criticized for trying to paint a rosy economy. And by the way, the economy was far stronger and more rugged under President Biden than it's been under Donald Trump, by far. Not even close, not even like the same thing whatsoever. But people were still very critical of Joe Biden when he would tout actual good economic data at the time. And they would say, I wish he would show more empathy with the people. Like, the people are still struggling out there. There still is a wide gap right now between the rich and the poor. And he should acknowledge that. And he should acknowledge that the stock market isn't necessarily the economy, all that sort of things. Trump just says F you. Trump just says F you. The economy's good, and if you think otherwise, then F you. It's really is a big F you to his entire base. And that's why I think you see people even like Marjorie Taylor Greene and a lot of these MAGA voices going like, we can't gaslight our way out of this economy. We can't gaslight our way out of the facts. And the more they try to go with that messaging, the more likely it is that they are going to get blown out of the midterms, and the lower and lower Donald Trump's approval rating is going to get, the more unpopular these people are going to get. But it comes down to something that we discuss on the show often, and that's that Donald Trump is a fraud. He's been a fraud his entire life. He was held criminally liable for being a fraud. He had his company, his organization, they had to pay a lot of money. They were ordered to pay at least a lot of money for the fraud that they did by inflating numbers. Donald Trump inflated the numbers of the square footage of his apartments there. He has a track record of always being a fraud. And all these people who are around him right now, the Caroline Levitts, the Hassetts, you name it, you name the person. If this were Donald Trump's business, they would all be criminal or civil defendants in the many lawsuits that would be brought in the fraud cases against these businesses, because it is the same exact pattern of deception that Donald Trump is engaging in, but this time it's on a national scale and it's affecting all of us.
This regime is slightly different than regime number one of Donald Trump, right? Where he's still in the regime one, brought in some bad people, but he still had people who were like effective operators, and I'm not trying to make excuses for their behavior, but they were more right-wing, establishment-ish people, and then they would get into fights, and then he would cycle through them. And this time, it's basically the Trump org running the United States. The same people who bankrupted Trump casinos and all of those Trump products. He's basically assembled a team that looks like them to handle the very complex economy of the United States, or he's forced people to behave like that and lower their capacity like a Bessent or a Rubio, who I'm not suggesting are good people, but I'm saying at least have an intellectual capacity to think that they've squashed and are just as bad, if not worse, than the Hegseths and the rest of these lunatics at this point. And this is why, setting aside politics, often what we talk about on this podcast is moral character, qualifications, being effective, like operationally sound behavior. And to me, that shouldn't be, are you a Democrat or a Republican? I understand politics is everywhere around us, but for me, it's like, we'll talk about this later. Let's give you an example. Lindsay Halligan, the top federal prosecutor in Virginia, now Eastern District of Virginia, who had this hearing today about whether she'll be disqualified or not based on being an unlawfully appointed federal prosecutor. She was a beauty pageant contestant turned insurance lawyer who has never been a federal prosecutor before, who's never been a trial lawyer before, who went into a grand jury room to secure an indictment of James Comey. I'll just address this now while I'm on this rant. James Comey, the former FBI director who himself was a top prosecutor, top lawyer. And then she also went after New York Attorney General Letitia James, top lawyer, climbed the ladder. She went after them. She was in the grand jury room securing an indictment of James Comey. And guess what? The critical portions of the transcript where she secures the indictment after like 4:50 p.m. Eastern time till when the grand jury signed off on her purported charges against Comey, guess what? It's missing. It's missing. Judge Curry, the federal judge who had these incredible instincts many weeks ago, you'll remember we covered, she said, send me the grand jury transcript. I want to read it. And then she responded after getting portions of it and said, wait a minute, the key section is missing where you sought the indictment. Send it to me with the full portion. Halligan and the DOJ send it, and guess what? It's missing. So today, at the hearing on the disqualification of Halligan, because you're not allowed to have two interim United States attorneys, you're only allowed to get one shot at it. The prior United States attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia was fired or forced out, Republican, by the way, because he said that the charges against Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James were frivolous and would not bring the charges. So that's why they brought Halligan in. But Halligan's in this grand jury room, and the court reporter is either not there or not transcribing what's happening. So what did Halligan tell this grand jury to secure this indictment? How do we know that she didn't say, hey, grand jury, I just need you to sign there, please, and that's your job, just sign it? We don't. Did she give accurate description on what the law is as required by her duty as a federal prosecutor? What did she do? Why is it missing? That's unheard of. That's not supposed to happen. Well, would any of you want to go on an airplane where your pilot has started their flight school on day one? Would you want them to be your 747 pilot when you're traveling across the country? Of course you would not, right? That would be a horrifying. So why is Donald Trump doing the equivalent of hiring the day one flight school student to fly the airplane right away? That shouldn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican. The outcome is going to be crash. And that's what we're seeing here over and over again. Brett and Jordy, I know we want to talk about that. We've got to take our first quick break of the show.
Well, let me just say this before we go to break quickly. And I'll just say what you just described again ties into exactly what I was saying in the beginning of this episode. It's that absence of information, I think, is actually telling us more than the information itself. The fact that they are not providing those missing grand jury transcripts, that they suddenly went missing, they don't have that part, to me is highly incriminating. And it shows that Lindsay Halligan either did something incredibly unethical in that grand jury room to secure these indictments or illegal in that room. If they had the transcripts that would exonerate her, they would surely release them. And by the way, Pam Bondi is also embroiled in all this because she retroactively decided to sign off on everything Lindsay Halligan did in the Comey case, which is also could come back to screw her as well. So you got all of these people right now signing on to these moves that are at minimum unethical, at worst, highly illegal. And we are seeing this play out just in every sector of the government. It is so corrupt, and it is because they are just failing in every single aspect of everything, and they are failing the American people worst of all.
Deep dive into the Epstein emails when we return. I'll go through them methodically. I went through all 23,000 of those emails. I'm going to show you.
We were up late last night going back and forth. We were sending each other like all the screenshots we found. I was going next. Okay, what's this? Right? I mean, holy crap. Did you see this? Like, it was
bananas.
Yeah, it was totally crazy.
First quick break of the show. A reminder, if you can join our YouTube channel and become a member and gift memberships to others, it's very helpful to the growth of this independent platform, especially gifting memberships to people who can't afford the memberships right now. If you can. Also, make sure you subscribe to our audio podcast. Just search MeidasTouch. It helps as well. If you're just watching on YouTube, subscribe on audio. Audio listeners, subscribe on YouTube. First quick break of the show. We'll be right back.
Cold mornings, holiday plans. This is when I just want my wardrobe to be simple. Stuff that looks sharp, feels good, and things I'll actually wear. For me, that's Quince. And the bonus, Quince pieces make great gifts too. This season's lineup is simple but smart and easy with Quince. $50 Mongolian cashmere sweaters that feel like an everyday luxury, and wool coats that are equal parts stylish and durable. Their denim nails the fit and everyday comfort, all at a fraction of what you'd expect to pay. By partnering directly with ethical factories and top artisans, Quince cuts out the middlemen to deliver premium quality at half the costs of other high-end brands, so you can give luxury quality pieces without the luxury price tag. As for me, I just got a crew neck sweater for those chilly LA nights, and I love it. Quince even had stuff for my newborn. I picked up pajamas and a towel set, perfect for the holidays. Give and get timeless holiday staples that last this season with Quince. Go to quince.com/Midas for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/MEIDAS. Free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/Midas.
Ever have one of those moments where your body reminds you it's not 25 anymore? Maybe it's the slower recovery after a workout or the way your joints creak like an old floorboard. And don't get me started on how much worse it is in the winter. It's like my energy goes into hibernation. Aging is a reality for all of us, but our actions determine how we age. That's why I use Qualia Senolytic to help keep my cells healthy and my body feeling youthful. Zombie cells are real and they're aging you. These senescent cells stop being useful, but stick around, draining your energy, slowing recovery, and making you feel older than you are. Qualia Senolytic helps your body fight back against aging. It's a powerful, clinically tested formula with 9 vegan, plant-derived compounds that support your body's natural ability to eliminate zombie cells, so you can feel sharper, stronger, and more energized. Take it just 2 days a month. That's all it takes. Take Qualia Senolytic for just 2 days a month and start aging better at the cellular level. After adding Qualia Senolytic to my routine, I noticed a real difference. My energy feels steadier, recovery is quicker, and mentally I'm more dialed in. Experience the science of feeling younger. Go to qualialife.com/Midas for up to 50% off your purchase and use code Midas for an additional 15%. That's qualialife.com/Midas for up to 50% off your purchase. Your older self will thank you. And thanks to Qualia for sponsoring this episode. Ever wake up sweaty, freezing, or just uncomfortable? The temperature in your bedroom can make or break your sleep. That's why I switched to Miracle Made sheets. They're inspired by NASA technology and use silver-infused temperature-regulating fabric to help you sleep perfectly all night long. Miracle Made sheets are crafted with NASA-inspired, silver-infused fabric that helps regulate your body temperature. Hot sleeper, cold sleeper, it doesn't matter. These sheets help keep you in the comfort zone all night long. Thanks to their antibacterial silver technology, Miracle Made sheets stay cleaner and fresher up to 3 times longer than regular sheets. That means fewer odors, fewer wash cycles, and way less laundry. They feel just as good, if not better, than sheets you'd find at a 5-star hotel, but without the steep price tag. Smooth, breathable, and ridiculously comfortable. Upgrade your sleep or give the gift of better rest. Go to trymiracle.com/Midas to try Miracle Made sheets today. You'll save over 40%, and when you use promo code Midas, you'll get an extra 20% off plus a free 3-piece towel set. They make an amazing gift. With a 30-day money-back guarantee, there's no risk. That's trymiracle.com/Midas, code Midas at checkout. Thanks to Miracle Made for sponsoring this episode. Let's go. Shout out to our sponsors. Links in description of both the YouTube and the audio. Use the links, use the codes. If there's an exit survey, let them know we sent you. It's holiday season, folks, so a lot of great deals for you. Check those out. Benji, where to next?
All right. Buckle up. We're doing a deep dive into the Epstein estate emails. Let me say the following before we do this deep dive. How did we get these emails? How did you get these emails? How did the public get these emails? The Democrats in the House Oversight Committee, not the Republicans, they reached out directly to the Epstein estate. The Epstein estate is administered by a third party. It's almost like in a bankruptcy where You have someone who's appointed by a court to basically take over and be an administrator, right? So somebody's appointed here. There's to distribute money, to address settlements, to handle the litigation. They get paid for their work. They get paid out of money that's in the estate. And that's who you're kind of dealing with. If you want to know, like, well, who's the estate? So the estate generally is cooperative to working in conjunction with its stated purpose from a court to administer claims, to respond to things. So when people are saying, well, where did these documents come from, or Todd Blanche didn't have access to these documents when he was meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell. Of course he did. He could have reached out as well. He could have subpoenaed them or just asked for them, and the estate would have turned these over. So the Democrats asked for it because they want transparency. It took a little time because there had to be redactions of the victims' names. But these are emails and documents from the estate. This is not the Epstein files. If you told me this was the Epstein files, I would say, well, it's pretty damaging stuff. No wonder Donald Trump does. Like, I can't even emphasize enough how damaging and devastating these documents are. But these are not the Epstein files. These are the emails that the estate has. And Trump's name is like the most prominent name in these 20. There's other names that appear, Larry Sumner's, others, but Trump's name is perhaps the most prominent name. And then towards the end of Epstein's life, right, he dies allegedly by suicide, although these emails make that seem even way more far-fetched than many people before, because it did not seem, based on those emails, like he was someone who didn't seem that he had information and he had plans and ways to get out. He hadn't even gone through his criminal trial, right? But he dies August 2019. He's arrested July of 2019. These emails go through pretty much all of that period. And towards the end, Epstein gets obsessed with Trump. I mean, he's saying, I have information. Like, he literally says in an email, I have information that, isn't it interesting that I'm the only guy who's got the information that can bring him down? I mean, literally months before his death, Epstein in an email says he's the only one who could take Trump down. I mean, that's a wild thing to say. And he gets obsessive with Trump too towards the end, right? Like, he's monitoring Trump's tail numbers, like the Trump's flights. He's speaking with Trump insiders kind of pretty frequently, leading up to right before Epstein gets arrested. The frequency increases. So these, again, are the Epstein estate emails. And what was kind of surprising to me, Brett and Jordy and Meidas Mighty, is that the initial emails that the Democrats posted about Epstein emailing Ghislaine in 2011, saying that he's the dog that hasn't barked yet, referring to Trump, and that, Trump was at Epstein's house with one of the victims for a long period of time. And isn't it interesting that Trump hasn't responded yet? The more that came out throughout the day in our analysis, I thought the emails got more damaging than the ones that they even posted. The email from Michael Wolff to Donald Trump was one of the ones that they posted. I mean, from Michael Wolff to Epstein was one of the ones that they posted, talking about, well, why don't you come out with the information that you have? You've got all of this dirt on him and you can end him right now. Why don't you do this? The 2011 email, though, to Ghislaine is pretty devastating because the timing of these emails before Trump was political, to me, or was a national figure for president. That's why a lot of these are interesting, because they go back to periods of time where, if you want to say, well, look, he was saying this in 2018 and 2019 because he was being opportunistic and Donald Trump was in office then. So, okay, but like in 2011, then remember there was that last document dump of far less documents from the estate, but like 2007, where it's an email from Epstein and Ghislaine where they talk about the WPB documents, West Palm Beach documents. They say, is Trump probably speaking with the feds? And Trump, Gossman, Pascal, WPB documents. And you'll recall Trump bought a property from this previously wealthy guy, who's no longer alive, named Abe Gossman in 2004 for $40 million. Then Trump sold it for $95 million to a Russian oligarch named Rybolev. Rybolev then demolished the property a few years later. Trump made basically a $45 million profit on the sale. Epstein introduced Trump to that Gossman property because Epstein wanted advice about where to move the pool. Epstein was going to buy it for $30 million. Trump bought it from underneath Epstein for $40 million and then sold it to Rybolev, the Russian oligarch. And Epstein always thought there was some shady thing going on, perhaps between Gossman, Trump, and Rybolev. So that was an August 23, 2007 email. But Brett and Jordy and Meidas Mighty, let's just go through some of these together, right? Jeffrey Epstein in 2015, he goes, have them ask my houseman about Donald, almost walking through the door, leaving his nose print on the glass as young women were swimming in the pool, and he was so focused he walked straight into the door. Or how about this email between Epstein and Thorbjørn Jagland, the former prime minister of Norway, where Epstein says in emails that he had been advising the Russian government on how to deal with Donald Trump. Specifically, he said he was advising somebody named Vitaly Churkin, but Churkin died. And there was going to be a meeting, apparently, between Sergei Lavrov, Putin, and Donald Trump. And Epstein was telling the former prime minister and a guy who had a top position at the United Nations, Thorbjørn Jagland, the former prime minister of Norway, and he responds to Epstein, I'll meet with Lavrov's assistant on Monday and will suggest basically that you consult with the Russians, leading to something. You know what was 1 month later? Trump's meeting in Helsinki. This was June 24th, 2018. So Epstein is saying here, whether we don't know if it's true or not, but what he's saying, again, not just to a rando, to the former prime minister of Norway who's meeting with Lavrov's people, I've been consulting with the Russians about Donald Trump's past. Lavrov should speak to me, and then the Helsinki meeting happens a year later. Like, just think about that. For those who like, Lavrov sounds familiar. He was the guy wearing the USSR shirt in Alaska who was with Putin. He's Putin's number 2 right now today. He's the foreign minister. He's like the top guy in Russia. Lavrov, Epstein, Trump, and we know from these suspicious activity reports that JP Morgan Chase had to admit to after the New York Times and Wall Street Journal made recent public records requests, 4,600 SAR, suspicious activity reports, that Epstein was using lots of Russian accounts and that he was running a $1 billion money laundering scheme adjacent to his sex trafficking ring. I know, mind blown. Jeffrey Epstein says this, I've met some very bad people, none as bad as Trump, not one decent cell in his body. And Epstein is writing that to Larry Sumner's, both bad people. And they're saying that Trump is the worst person that Epstein's ever met. Also, Epstein and his brother were sending memes about Donald Trump to each other with a photo of Trump saying, would you trust this man with your daughter? Epstein and Epstein's brother, Epstein, who ran the biggest child sex trafficking ring ever, is saying, would you trust this man with your daughter? And it's a photo of Trump, and that's what's being sent from Epstein's brother to Epstein. Messages from Epstein advising Steve Bannon that lawyers representing Brett Kavanaugh in his confirmation hearing should accuse Christine Blasey Ford of being on medications that cause false memories or memory loss. Epstein to Larry Sumner's about Trump's level of guilt. Your world does not understand how dumb he really is. He will blame everyone around him for bad results. Emails from the New York Times journalist or former journalist Landon Thomas tipping Epstein off about following up investigations by journalist and former NYPD detective John Connolly. Responding to a 2017 message that Trump was so gross, Epstein said Trump was worse in real life and up close. There were messages where Epstein writes to his lawyer, have one of your cronies ask to see the mortgage at Mar-a-Lago, cash from electricians unions. His driver, Matt, was the bag man, later made an exec at the Public Co. and the $30 million loan from the casino to Donald Trump. backdated loans. And this email was sent on October 24th, 2012, between Epstein and his lawyer. There are messages in 2014 about Trump stealing a piece of Atlantic City casinos and a guy who was beaten by Trump. There's an email from November 13th, 2016. Linda Stone saying, "You still in Paris?" Epstein says, "Trump Tower." Is he saying he's in Trump Tower? And there's more. Okay. How about this one? The lewd Epstein birthday book that included a joke about Epstein selling a fully depreciated woman to Trump. Now, these new emails show Epstein telling someone that he gave Trump his 20-year-old girlfriend in the mid-1990s. I mean, think about this stuff. That was going down there.
How about this one where we got to read this one. I mean, it's just Jeffrey Epstein in 2018 saying, "I know how dirty Donald is." I mean, when you have Jeffrey frickin' Epstein, of all people, saying how repulsed he was by Donald Trump, and Jeffrey Epstein's brother sharing memes with Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted pedophile, a convicted child sex trafficker, saying, "Would you trust this man with your daughters?" I mean, just how depraved does that make Donald Trump if this is coming from Jeffrey frickin' Epstein? And it shows, like, I think it's kind of clear. You see almost a change in their relationship as you look through these emails, kind of from close buds to like a falling out in the later years. And it's clear that Epstein knew where all the bodies were buried, so to speak, and that people were constantly making allusions to Epstein knowing everything, and Epstein constantly telling people, "You should look here at Trump, you should look here." I mean, the whole thing is actually, it's incredibly like kind of fascinating too, to see the psychology and the pathology of Epstein and what was happening during these, kind of big moments throughout our history and politics and stuff. And one of the things that really also blew me away was how at least Epstein, because remember, to me, you got to assume someone's at a certain point, he's an unreliable narrator who wants to make himself seem super important. But you have Epstein constantly speaking with world leaders, speaking about the work he did with Russia, speaking about the work he did with Norway, speaking about the work he did with the Saudis and Israel and all these various people. Obviously, like a well-connected guy, almost acting like some sort of like foreign agent or consultant, like in the Trump world. Like the whole thing to me is just completely weird. And I got to say, though, to be fair, Bill Clinton was mentioned in these, right? I mean, we should mention what they said about Bill Clinton, right? Because the Trump people surely want to know, and the American people want to know, right? People should know, about everything. Well, unfortunately for the MAGA crew, the one thing about Bill Clinton that was in these emails was Jeffrey Epstein saying, "I can't believe people keep saying Clinton was on the island." Clinton was never on the island. This is the one thing that came out. And obviously, I know a lot of people are going to say, but we all saw the flight logs. His name was on the flight log, so that must be a lie. But remember, those flight logs weren't flights to the island. And that's why those flight logs were flights in general on Epstein's plane. So it could be going to New York. We know that Bill Clinton would use that plane to go to like charity events in Africa and things like that. So those were just people on the plane, not necessarily people who went to the island. And then you have Epstein in these private emails saying that Bill Clinton actually never even went to the island, despite that being kind of something that people commonly believe to be true and something that Trump frequently says. And so, when you add all the various elements of this up, like it could not be worse for Donald Trump and MAGA, and his refusal to come clean about any of this and his refusal to speak on it. I mean, we've seen now he basically went silent for like a 24-hour period on his social media, refused to like say anything, which, if you follow Trump, that's highly unusual. After this dropped, he did a couple messages where he said, "This is the latest in the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. It's all a lie. It's all a hoax. Jeffrey Epstein didn't do anything with it. I'm not involved, blah, 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 blah." That only makes him seem guiltier. And then he was asked by the press yesterday, refused to answer the question, told the press to leave. Today, again, during another event, he ran out when he was asked the question, refused to answer it, refused to say anything about this. I mean, the more, once again, I think we have the theme, right? The more that he refuses to give the information, the guiltier he looks, because if the information actually exonerated him, he'd be the first one to say, "Okay, let's do this." In fact, if I were Donald Trump and I were in this situation, I think this has become such a huge problem for him. I would hold like a primetime event to speak about Epstein. Now, I don't think he would ever do this in the world because I think the information is actually highly incriminating. But I think it's at a point where he has to like, you ever see the movie 8 Mile? 8 Mile with Eminem, where like, I hate to ruin the movie for you. It's been out for a while, but he's got this great rap where like, you know, they're going to unleash all this dirt on him. And then he does a freestyle where he goes through all the various things that they could possibly unleash on him. You know, he outs himself for all the various things that they could possibly make fun of him for. I think Trump, you know, if he were smart, he would hold an Epstein press conference and he would just come clean on everything. You know, I think now he can't because I think what's actually there is incriminating. But if it's not incriminating, then come out, speak to the American people and say, listen, you know, I used to party with this guy. We were both wealthy people in the Palm Beach area. Yes, we attended parties. Yes, there were young women there. You know, no, I didn't do anything. You know, a lot of people knew the guy, as you see from the email. You know, just go. If you didn't do anything, just come clean with the American people. This should be a way to clear things up. And I think he'd actually gain respect for people for doing that. But just like with the economic data, just like he tried to do with COVID, instead he goes, I'm not going to give you the information. In fact, it's the whole thing's a hoax. Nothing to see here, folks. And that makes him look a billion times guiltier. And it's perhaps why he's not coming clean with the information, because if the reality was out there, and if this is what we're just seeing in these emails that were handed over by the Epstein estate and not what's actually in the files, not what's actually in the various FBI investigations and everything that we've seen over the past decade or so, it's got to be pretty bad. And I understand why he's freaking out the way that he is, and this whole Republican Party who is shielding him after making this their like main issue. And by the way, I want to address something else, because I always see, you know, there's always people who are like, but why didn't Biden release the files? Why didn't Biden? And people love to use that line. First of all, these files were sealed. But the Biden DOJ was prosecuting. They were prosecuting the case, okay? They were prosecuting. This case was still an active case. And I want to remember that Trump set the standard for releasing information like this. In investigations, you don't actually normally release files to the public because there's an appeals process, like Ghislaine Maxwell's appealing her sentence, right? Like there are things that you're actually not supposed to do as prosecutors, as law enforcement agencies. And Trump has also made it the norm where he is the guy who's now directing his Department of Justice to come out and he's weaponizing the Department of Justice. I know that Trump people will say, oh, but Biden weaponized the Department of Justice against Donald Trump and it was all weaponized. Bullshit. The Biden DOJ was as careful as could be. The Biden DOJ was prosecuting people who committed crimes. And those people who committed crimes happened to be Donald Trump, happened to be a lot of these Republicans who got caught up in January 6th. That's why they were investigating that. It didn't come from a political angle. I know the MAGA people would go, oh, F you, shut up. But that's just the reality of it. So you got to accept that. The Biden DOJ was not a weaponized DOJ. Biden was somebody who left everything, for better or worse, to Merrick Garland. It wasn't something like, okay, here's my election strategy. You drop the files, we destroy this guy. That's not normal. That's not what American presidents do. But Donald Trump made this his cause du jour. He swept his way into office, at a big part by saying that he would release these files. Him and his team and the various MAGA people have consistently released fake versions of files and fake lists of names that happen to list all the celebrities they hate and all the politicians they hate, completely made up. But when it came actual time to actually release the files and do the job, the files that they now have all the access to, it's pretty damn clear that they looked at those files, they saw Trump's name all over it, and it wasn't too flattering, and they decided, oh no, we can't do anything with this. We got to just get the hell away from this and try to hide it and everything. I mean, it's very obvious what's happening here, folks.
Such a brilliant breakdown there, P. Well done. And you know what I'm most impressed? I can't believe you were able to work in 8 Mile into the Trump Epstein segment. So kudos to you for being able to do that.
My palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. I was vomiting on my sweater already, but
really good point.
Spaghetti
that I haven't even really thought about until you brought it up. And that's the pathology of Epstein when he's sending these emails. I mean, it's almost obsessive that he got with Donald Trump. And I think a lot of people could sort of relate to this. You don't get that sort of obsessive about something or somebody in this way if you weren't close to them. Like if you weren't very close to them and you felt like they crossed you or wronged you in some way, that now this is the only thing that is going to consume your mind at all times. that he's going to make his sole focus here now on Trump and the behavior that he witnessed, and now can sort of help bring him down because Epstein was a part of it, obviously. And so it's just that's such an interesting point, Brett, that you bring up here is the mindset of Epstein during these emails.
He's nervous, but on the surface, he looks calm and ready.
We're doing
drop bombs, but he keeps on forgetting. What he wrote down, the whole crowd goes.
Let me say this, because you never truly know what's going through someone's mind, and I want to be very clear and very sensitive when you hear stories of people dying by suicide. And so one can say, "Oh, well, that person looked very happy," or "How did that happen? I was just hanging out with them," So and you hear that all the time. My only observation is that seeing Epstein through these emails, he's a very narcissistic, kind of sociopathic person. And leading up to his purported death by suicide, he's speaking to people at the highest levels in various governments, right? Like he's talking to prime ministers, defense ministers, other billionaires, presidents of universities, right? Like he's speaking with the elite of the elite on all of these things. Then he gets arrested in July, and then he's dead a month later, purportedly dying by suicide. And my only observation is that somebody who believes they have all this dirt on Donald Trump, somebody who's speaking with all of these people, my only thought would be that before getting to the level of there's no hope in the future and I'm done, it just seems the personality type would be, let me exhaust every one of these contacts and aspects of what I have.
Yeah, he's not giving like I'm fucked and it's all over for me. He's given like, oh, I got this. Like it's whatever.
Again, I want to be very sensitive to beyond sensitive to this topic and approach it with the utmost care. However, that's what the emails, in my review of it, that's just a personality type that I identify. Let's take our last quick break of the show. When we come back, we still have a lot to discuss, although we've covered a lot of ground already. A reminder, hit join, become a member. If you become a member, it's a paid membership of the YouTube, okay? But it helps grow this independent media platform, and gift memberships. There's no limit to the gift of memberships that you can give, and you can help people unlock emojis and get other bonus features like the exclusive podcast we do with Ron Filipkowski that's just available to members. Last quick break of the show, home stretch. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you after the break. Look, starting a new business can be intimidating. I get it. MeidasTouch Network was not built overnight. You need the tools to help you engage in the day-to-day tasks, the growth. And so it's why we use Shopify. It made things easy for us. And I think you should use Shopify too. So Shopify is a commerce platform. It is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the United States. From household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands like the MeidasTouch Network. Get started with your own design studio with hundreds of ready-to-use templates. Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store to match your brand style, accelerate your content creation. Shopify is packed with helpful AI tools that write product descriptions, page headlines, and even enhance your product photography. Get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you. Even if you don't, easily create email and social media campaigns wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling to the MeidasTouch Network. And best yet, Shopify is your commerce expert. And with its world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping to processing returns and beyond, you can count on Shopify. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. So turn your big business idea into boom, boom, boom with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/Meidas. Go to shopify.com/Meidas. One more time. That's shopify.com/Meidas.
Long work weeks and busy weekends can leave you feeling and looking depleted. Prolon's 5-day fasting mimicking diet works at the cellular level to rejuvenate you from the inside out, providing real results that include fat-focused sustainable weight loss with no injection needed. And now they're upping their game with the new next-gen 5-day program, delivering the same science-backed benefits in a cleaner, more convenient, and more flavorful format. Prolon is a plant-based nutrition program featuring soups, snacks, and beverages designed to nourish the body while keeping it in a fasting state, triggering cellular rejuvenation and renewal. Developed over decades at USC's Longevity Institute and backed by top US medical centers, Prolon has been shown to support biological age reduction, metabolic health, skin appearance, fat loss, and energy. NextGen builds on the original Prolon with 100% organic soups and teas, a richer taste, and ready-to-eat meals. No matter the season, when I'm craving a real reset, Prolon is the only nutrition program that works for me. It's convenient, backed by Nobel-winning science, and it works. For a limited time, Prolon is offering listeners 15% off site-wide plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day program. Just visit prolonlife.com/Meidas. That's prolonlife.com/Meidas to claim your 15% discount and your bonus gift. prolonlife.com/Meidas. The holiday season can be stressful, endless shopping, travel, parties every weekend, and when I need to slow down and actually relax, I reach for Sol's Out of Office Gummies, the perfect balance of CBD and THC that helps me find my calm place and my peace of mind. Sol is a wellness brand that believes feeling good should be fun and easy. Sol specializes in delicious hemp-derived THC and CBD products designed to boost your mood and help you unwind. Their best-selling out-of-office gummies were designed to provide a mild, relaxing buzz, boost your mood, and enhance creativity and relaxation. With 5 different strengths, you can tailor the dose to fit your vibe, from a gentle 1.5 mg microdose to their newest 15 mg gummy for a more elevated experience. And if you like their out-of-office gummies, try the new out-of-office beverage, a refreshing alcohol-free alternative that's perfect for winding down on the couch or socializing with friends. Sol also has a variety of products specifically designed to help you get a better night's rest, including their top-selling Sleepy gummies, a fan favorite for deep, restorative sleep. With wellness at the forefront, you can feel good about what you're putting in your body. All of Sol's products are made from organically farmed USA-grown hemp and are vegan, gluten-free, low in sugar, and federally legal. Take advantage of Sol's Black Friday Cyber Monday deal now. For a limited time, get 40% off your entire order. Go to GetSol.com and use the code Meidas. That's GetSol, promo code Meidas for 40% off. Don't miss their best deal of the year. Let's go. Shout out to our sponsors. Links in description of the YouTube and the audio. Use the links, use the codes. If there's an exit survey, let them know we sent you. Benji, where to next?
Where to? We'll just start here just to show you that none of this behavior is normal by the Trump regime. And then I want to pivot to other topics that perhaps more serious, although I think this is serious as well, because you have Donald Trump in the Oval Office having like a bizarre experience, so strange for me to watch this, with the leader of Syria, al-Shara, who used to be the leader of the Al-Qaeda. He had like a $10 million or $20 million bounty on his head from the United States because he was directing people to kill Americans, throughout the Middle East. He's now the leader of Syria. And Donald Trump rolls out the red carpet for this guy, treats him better than Prime Minister Carney or Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister of Australia, you name it. Like, Trump loves this guy. And he may actually love the guy. It's like a really weird scene in the Oval Office in the White House where Donald Trump, he said before that he says he thinks this guy's attractive, which I'm saying, I think this guy's really good looking. I think you're really attractive, very strong man. You're very attractive. And then when Trump gets to see him, like, Trump's kind of like giddy around him, almost like when you see Trump's face, like you've never seen him this happy before around like anybody. And it's almost looks like someone who met their, like, who they have a crush on. And I'm not trying to be weird here, just you could assess it for yourself. And Trump's immediate thing to do with this guy is to like start saying, you want me to spray you with my Trump perfume or my Trump cologne? You want me to do that to you and see if you smell really good? And I just, watch this. It's just a very weird interaction. How many wives do you have? How many wives do you have? I mean, it's a really weird interaction. It's weird that the leader of Syria, given that background, is there in the Oval Office. And I understand, the importance of diplomacy and that Syria has an important role, and just the idea of geostrategic, for its position is helpful. It should be noted that al-Shara also visited Russia, though, but like it's kind of diminishing to the White House visit, which used to be an honorific of the highest honorific degree. When you have this taking place, like why is the White House meeting from a foreign leader meaningful? In fact, I would argue that it's something to be avoided at this point at all. It is a scarlet letter or a stain if you have to show up there. It's shameful, right? To be in the, just watch this. Here, play this clip.
Men's fragrance, right? Yeah. This is it's the best fragrance. Come here, man.
I have no one here, sir.
Okay. So what we'll do is just take that, Joe, put it in, and then the other one is for your wife. How many wives?
Or what?
You guys said never know, right?
Have you ever seen him that happy? And did he spray himself in the face? Like it looks like Trump got it in his eye too. If you saw what he did with his, because and why would an interaction ever occur like that? I've never thought of any interaction where another woman or man or whoever came in, just say another man came into my house or place of business, and I'm you want me to spray you with this cologne? It looks like Trump's actually attracted to the guy.
It's quite the analysis for sure. And the craziest thing is that
what I'm trying to say here is I think that Donald Trump is attracted to the former leader.
I totally get it. Let me show you this too, because one of the craziest things is, like I said, this guy ran a sect of Al-Qaeda. And if you look at photos of the guy, and I really don't recommend you do this, but you look the guy up. You can't do this, Ben. Don't smile at me like that. If you look at photos of him, you see him holding heads of people he beheaded. I've seen these pictures. They're horrific. It's as bad as it gets. And if you look at even currently, this is still up. They haven't deleted this. They still have, this is the U.S. Embassy Syria, still has this post up on Twitter, for example, on their social media that says, "Stop this terrorist, up to $10 million reward. We remain committed to bringing him to justice." This remains up right now. And this is the guy who Donald Trump had in the White House. And one of the things Trump said when he was in the White House, he was like, oh yeah, he said a bit of a rough past. You got to forgive him. He's had a rough past. Don't we all have rough pasts? I mean, we all have rough pasts, right? To me, when you're saying somebody had a rough past, to me, I don't know. It's you got a couple DUIs, maybe you got in bar fights back in the day. I don't think that you actually ran a sect of Al-Qaeda. I don't think that's what people mean when you had a rough past. We've all had rough pasts. But Donald Trump just normalizes this the same way he's normalized all these sort of dictators and autocrats and just horrific people, these terrorist groups. And they have the nerve then to try to put that on Democrats and say the most horrible things about Mamdani and things like that. While you have Donald Trump in the White House with the former leader of Al-Qaeda, you have him palling around with the Saudis, you have him going into business with the Saudis. There's just no shame from this administration. And they try to whitewash this history of people who have committed the most heinous acts against the American people. It's unfathomable to me that this is just normalized right now.
The video that we played for the audio listeners is so bizarre of Donald Trump spritzing these people with cologne.
It really is strange.
It could best be described as you guys remember going to malls. I don't go to that many malls lately, but you guys remember kids going to malls?
Yeah, malls used to be the shit. Malls used to be where
you'd go through Macy's and then they'd have people there who would spray you when you walk past them with the perfume to give you a taste of what the perfume smelled like, hopes that you would.
I don't think you're supposed to eat it, Jordy. I think you're supposed to smell
it. You smell it, you eat it. It's the same thing. That's the best it can be described as. So if you're an audio
Jordy
listener,
would go to the mall and they'd be like, would you like to sample? They would go, do you like to sample this cologne? And Jordy would go, yes.
I know. There's no way to even say. Could you imagine if Obama or Biden had the former leader of Al Qaeda and started spraying perfume on them? Like, I mean, could you just even could you even imagine?
It would be in the front of the New York Post. They'd have some sort of witty headline about about Biden spraying perfume on the former leader of Al Qaeda.
He'd be done in 25th Amendment. This is
just a little bit of a rough pass. Just a couple beheadings.
Just a rough pass,
crazy. This is
beheadings,
crazy human.
killed a bunch of
But I'll tell you
Americans.
what, Game would have respected Game if Donald Trump, and I would have let Donald Trump keep the $10 million, right? If he was like, hold the perfume, right? And then he's like, you're under arrest, mother effer.
We got him. Yeah, no,
We got him. I want the 10 million. I would have said, you can grift and you can take that 10 million.
Take it. That's honestly
take
brilliant.
$10 million.
I wouldn't
him.
have even thought about
We
this
got
idea.
him. I would have gone a whole day without doing Trump disaster videos. I would have been Trump all caps pulls off
perfect
miracle.
stunt.
Perfect stunt. Arrest the leader of Al Qaeda. The old cologne trick would go down, like like the World War II movies.
Screw these tariffs. Let's have him keep inviting former terrorists in the White House, and then he just collects the money, and he can give that in rebates to the American people.
He set the ultimate trap. Like the World War II movies with the narration, and then there was a pivotal moment. He invited him into the Oval Office. And he pulled out the cologne. He said, do you like this scent? And then when Al-Shara was not looking, Donald Trump pulled out the cuffs and said, we've got you, mother effer. I goes, and that.
No, he's got to have a cool tagline, man. He's got to be like, do you like this scent?
Yeah.
Because it smells like prison. Or so, he's got to be like smells like justice. Smells like justice.
All right, anyway, let's move.
Boom, cuffs on, whisk him away. Approval rating from 33% to 73%.
You know what? They would have, if they asked me, if I was polled, do you approve of that move? I would have been like, yeah, that's gangster. I approve of that move. Yeah. I would have given, not approve of him, that little move, the arrest. I would have said that was a good move right there.
Yeah.
But no, he embarrassed us and shamed us by saying by sniffing the former leader of Al Qaeda, turned leader of Syria.
You smell nice.
And then genuinely asking how many wives he had and try to play it off like he didn't know.
Could we just talk about his day, Brett, and just get the
how many
clip
wives he
ready?
had? Could he use one more?
Get the clip ready where Donald Trump and Laura Ingraham talk about the brass versus like whatever the materials. I just want you to think about his day. Like he's like the morning. He gets hit with all the Epstein files, right? Like getting released or like the emails. Then, it's a different day, but I'll just conflate the days, just to give you a day. But then he brings in the former leader of Al Qaeda turned leader of Syria, starts spritzing him. Then he goes, ooh, you want to see Laura Ingraham does an interview with him. And he's like, I love designing ballrooms. Maybe I should just be a ballroom designer. Like he says that. He's like, do you see this? Do you see that? He gives her a tour. And then he talks about, do you see this? It's brass. No. I mean, it's just watch this clip where he just even lies about the material that it's made out of. Here, play this clip.
A lot of people are wondering which child would be the best.
In a certain way, they all could. Take a look at this, fellas. You want to see detail. So, like this sign. Most people would just do a sign they painted on the wall. So that's 1/2-inch thick bronze, carved by a very talented person. And it's brass, it's pure brass. It's 1/2-inch thick brass. And you can't just do that. That's, you look at that, that's quality, right? And then we start with George Washington and we go down to Trump. Pretty cool, right?
This is folks.
Is that fair? He's just repeating something that Melania said to him. Listen, it's 1/2-inch thick brass. Listen.
Is that something that's supposed to humanize him too? Is that supposed to be like a relatable thing that people do? Is they just go to their bajillion-dollar ballrooms and they point and they talk about the crafts and the brass and the craftsmanship of that.
Dude, it's all so freaking bizarre. But honestly, Fox tried to set this whole interview up with Laura Ingraham as this puff piece for Donald Trump, as they normally do. But Trump was so horrible in this interview that it ended up backfiring the biggest way. And I think ultimately they knew that they were sitting on this footage that they decided to stretch out over 2 nights. They could have just been one and done. The first night was devastating enough for Trump, but they stretched this out over 2 nights and had brutal question, not even brutal questions for Donald Trump, brutal answers by Donald Trump. And they knew at that point that they couldn't even like edit it out because it would have ruined the whole flow. So they add in these other moments, right? Like the brass versus bronze, BS and all that sort of stuff to try to, I guess, humanize him and try to take the damage off. But the damage has been done. I mean, I haven't seen MAGA and the 1-2 punch of the responses that Donald Trump gave during this Fox interview leading into more Epstein obstruction. I mean, it's one of the reasons why you're also seeing Donald Trump's approval rating right now be at like 33% and dropping, because even his own base, even amongst Republicans in general, you are seeing him start to fall off a freaking cliff. Like, I'm looking at what the MAGA people are saying. They feel betrayed by the guy. Like, you'll still have the MAGA propagandists and whatnot try to say everything's great, everything's amazing. But some of the things that Trump said during this interview have really irreparably harmed his reputation with the MAGA crowd. And Trump tries to write it off by saying things like, I'm MAGA. Everything I say is MAGA. Well, you don't know MAGA. Anything I say is the MAGA movement. And they're like, actually, that's not what we signed up for. And so like one of these things, for example, is when Donald Trump was asked about H-1B visas, which is something that the MAGA people hate. Like, they want to get rid of H-1B visas. Donald Trump used to say emphatically that he thought H-1B visas were a scam, but Trump changed his tune here. H-1B visas are, like skilled, employment. It's a lot of tech uses H-1B visas. Trump's companies, a lot of them use H-1B visas. And here's what Donald Trump said about it, and really offended people in the MAGA movement, because he essentially said that Americans aren't smart enough to fill these jobs, and therefore we need to go to other countries and have the H-1B visas to bring in the real talent, because the Americans not talented. Like, just watch this clip.
There's never going to be a country like what we have right now.
And does that
the
mean
Republicans have to talk about it, Laura.
And does that mean the H-1B visa thing will not be a big priority for your administration? Because if you want to raise wages for American workers, you can't flood the country with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of foreign workers.
You also do have to bring in talent. When
we have plenty of talented people here.
No, you don't.
We don't have talented people here?
No, you don't have certain talents, and people have to learn. You can't take.
Like, that was as bad as it gets. Like, I think screwed up.
By the way,
in general,
it's so interesting though, right? Because yes, it's helpful to have a mix of foreign students, which, by the way, he's actually harmed. That process hasn't helped. But then she asks the question, don't, like, the biggest softball, but don't we, like, both can be true, right?
Yeah.
That we have the talent.
He starts off with a position that's actually a position I would say, oh, wow, I agree with that. Yeah, of course we need,
and I also believe that we have talented people here, and we should emphasize and support Americans going to universities and getting the best education. And that's where he disagrees. Like, no. He's like, Americans clearly are not
our people
anywhere
are
near
horrible.
as smart
Americans
as the
are
Chinese
stupid.
students.
If you remember, Vivek Ramaswamy said basically the same thing verbatim a few months back, and then he turned into persona non grata in the MAGA movement, like didn't even tweet for like days, if not longer. And Trump said the same thing that he got basically tossed out of this movement for back then. I mean, there's nothing more harmful that Trump could say than that, other than, I guess, saying that in the same interview, we don't have to play the clip, but Donald Trump said that we need to bring in 600,000 Chinese students into the American universities, that it's essential for America to succeed. That also really set off the MAGA people. And so you combine that with the economic failures, with Donald Trump telling people that everything is rosy and everything's great, and we're living in a golden age.
Said that in the factories, Americans are not capable of high-skilled factory jobs.
Yeah, so it's just hit after hit after hit with Donald Trump, and then obviously the Epstein stuff. But this is why, if you're wondering why is Trump's support seem softer than ever right now? Why is he losing support with Republicans? Don't they love all the chaos? Yeah, they actually like all the bad crap, right? They like all that good stuff. They like all the bad stuff. But the fact that Donald Trump now has changed his position or has been more vocal on these issues like H-1Bs and Chinese immigration and America and shitting on American workers and ingenuity and obstructing the Epstein files. I mean, like, you add all of this up, and especially now that you have a bit of an opposition on the right, actually coming in many cases further to the right, you're starting to see a lot of these, and it's a very scary thing that's happening right now in the Republican Party. The most virulently anti-Semitic, horrific voices coming out from the right, people like Nick Fuentes and the Tucker Carlsons, and they're almost co-opting this movement. They don't view Trump as extreme enough anymore. They're angry at Trump. And meanwhile, you also have this opposition like Marjorie Taylor Greene and other people who are saying out loud, you know, this Epstein stuff is bullshit. Like, this is upsetting. Like, you release the files. Like, what are we doing? And saying, no, the economy's not good. The people in my district don't think the economy's good. They're struggling. And when Donald Trump says that everything's amazing and we're living in the golden age, it actually does the opposite of helping. It's actually hurting. It's a big FU in the faces of the people in my district. And when you add all that up, that's part of the reason right now why you're seeing the bottom fall out of this Trump administration. And as I wrote about a week ago, I said, I think right now we are in Donald Trump's Afghanistan moment. And for those who remember the Biden administration, after the Afghanistan withdrawal, which I think was 100% the right move in the long term, I'm so glad that we brought our troops out of Afghanistan. But obviously he was going by Trump's plan. Trump had pulled all the forces out of there. Trump had screwed over the Afghan government, and it was a rough withdrawal. And President Biden at the time, his approval rating took a hit. And his approval rating never recovered. It just kept going down, maybe, you know, a little up some days, a little up. It kept going down and kept going down. His presidency was never the same from an approval rating point of view. Well, that's why I said just about a week ago, I think we've hit that Afghanistan moment for the Trump administration. I'm not sure that he will ever recover from this. He'll have maybe some okay days, you know, but he's in bad shape right now. Unless things turn around fast, he just seems to be digging his hole deeper and deeper and deeper. And the reason why I don't think he's going to dig himself out of this hole is because of other answers that he gave to Laura Ingraham. Like when he said, the issue with the GOP, the issue with things right now, it's not that things are bad. It's not that people are suffering. It's not that prices are high. It's that Republican politicians aren't telling their voters that everything's amazing and that everything's cheap. As I said in the beginning, the worst possible thing you could do is lie to people about their lived experience. They know you're a bullshitter. You can't bullshit them on the issue of prices. I'll just play this clip quick.
Yes, the Republicans don't talk about it.
So they need to do a better job on Capitol Hill.
The Democrats give false talk, and the Republicans, and I say it all the time, Republicans have to talk about the fact that prices are down. The Walmart thing is very important. When Walmart says, a Thanksgiving meal costs 25%.
All right. And that's, of course, he's going on another lie. He's doubling down a lie with another lie. But that's the kind of reason why I'm like, oh, he's never going to dig himself out of this. He's just going to keep trying to lie his way out of this. But as we know, when Donald Trump starts lying about things like this, and we've seen it in his first presidency, we've seen it in his legal cases, once he starts digging, he keeps digging. And he brings on this, there's nothing more I could call it than this death spiral. The issue right now is the whole country is going to have to go through this death spiral with him as he destroys everything and collapses everything. But right now, we're watching a panicked man in a death spiral, making one bad decision after the next to try to cover for the previous bad decision. And it only makes things worse and worse and worse. And right now, we are in the middle of that storm.
If you remember early on in this regime, we gave an analysis, Brett, that was just that. I said the reason why Trump's companies have gone bankrupt so many times, why if there was probably a Guinness Book of Records of bankruptcies, I don't know if he would be number one, but he would certainly be someone who bankrupted a lot of things. I mean, multiple casinos, multiple times, and all of those products and all of the lawsuits. And you go, but how is that possible? Like, how could someone just keep on having that happen? It's a pathology. And it's like a decision-making tree where most people see the problem and then try to fix it, take responsibility, admit fault, and then try to fix it, be humble, bring in new people, right? Ways to address it. Trump takes the bad decision and turns it into a worse decision, and then turns it into a catastrophic decision, and turns it into absolute obliteration and bankruptcy. And then in the chaos of the bankruptcy or the catastrophe, right? And the mass confusion and people suffering, then he goes, oh, they did it. 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 Their fault, their fault, their fault, their fault. And then he moves on and bounces to the next one. That's been his whole life. And that was the warning that we've been trying to raise, that it's not a policy Democrat Republican thing, although that exists. Certainly, I said, and it's critical. I don't want to understate these issues, but I said he's a bad human being and he is a terrible business person who has run things into the ground. Just take that undisputed fact and you can set aside all of the other things. look at the decision making based on a warped pathology, and it is the worst in the world. Quite literally, if you picked any other human being to be in this position, they would do a better job than him. Seriously, he's quite literally the worst of all 7+, 8+ billion human beings. I literally believe he's the worst human being for this position because he has a sick, warped pathology. And I think he's the biggest loser that exists. And that's the problem. And so I'll leave you with that high note. Or you can think about him spritzing the former leader of Al-Qaeda, who used to be beheading people, who's in the Oval Office. And Trump said, "Oh, you smell good. You want my cologne? You want my fragrance?" We'll leave you with that. Keep fighting. Keep fighting. Stay in there, because the release of these files didn't just happen, right? It was the pressure that you forced, you caused, we've changed the rules of how this is reported, how we hold people accountable. And that's been one of the biggest stories as well. This is a different game when it comes to reporting and media now, that independent media is leading the way. So on that note, subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to MeidasTouch Podcast on audio, subscribe to become a member of the YouTube channel, and gift memberships to as many people as you can. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hold up. Is everyone on our Substack for the best damn political newsletter on the planet, released every day by Ron Filipkowski? Because you got to make sure that you subscribe to that. Free to subscribe. There are paid tiers which unleash even more features, but go to MeidasPlus.com right now. Join our Substack. Get the daily political newsletter straight to your Substack app or in your inbox or both, and you get a lot of other incredible content. I know you are all going to love it. So check us out, MeidasPlus.com. Great episode, brothers. Great episode, Meidas, Mighty. Lot to discuss. We went through a whole lot. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Remember to add the MeidasTouch Podcast on audio platforms, folks. And now I'm going to toss it over to Jordy. Jordy, take it away.
Shout out to the Meidas Mighty! Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.